Okay, so we are on Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj's I Am That. We're on chapter 45. What comes and goes has no being. What comes and goes has no being. That's Ramakrishna's big clue to us. That which is unchanging alone is real. And boy, you can really take that statement to the bank in your practice. If you really start using that in your practice to understand what is real and why. Why would it be that that which is changing is unreal? If you just take that statement of Thakur and use it in your practice and contemplate it at other times, boy, it just opens up so much. Uh, what does it open? Uh, it just seems to take the bottom out of your interior space. Your interior space just becomes so vast when you start trying to put your finger on that, put your attention on attention. It almost seems like it just, I don't know, it's a beautiful thing. So today, our very first paragraph, what a wonderful, oh my gosh, get ready. You have to put on two seatbelts for this one. The questioner makes this very standard statement. He says, a person is naturally limited. Maharaj, the very first thing he says, there is no such thing as a person. There is no such thing as a person. There are only restrictions and limitations. That's directly from Swamiji right there, that a person is just a collection of limitations and restrictions. That this personality, this individual that we love so much is just a bouquet of limitations and restrictions. There's no here. There is no such thing as a person. The sum total of these define the person, right? So your total set of restrictions, right? You say you're male. Well, that's a restriction because it means you're not female or anything in between. You say that I'm 60. That means you're not any other number in age. You say that I'm Indian or I'm American. That means you're not anything else. And so you see how all of your attributes that you've collected for yourself are limitations, are restrictions, definitions of boundary within yourself, right? And this is why it's called bondage, because we've drawn up these arbitrary boundaries within which we function, and we don't allow ourselves to step out of those boundaries. We make our habits define us. We make our previous choices define us, right? And then we project that into the future by our desires, that our desires then define us. Our desire for a nice car eventually becomes the nice car that then defines us as wealthy, defines us as young, defines us as sexy, whatever it is that we're trying to define ourselves or limit ourselves at, uh, that this is just that. You've just collected a series of ideas that I'm not this, I'm this. They're arbitrary. If you go back and look at the source of them, you'll find it's vapid. There's nothing there. And that this is all we are, right? And he goes on to say, you think that you know yourself when you know what you are, but you never know who you are, right? So we've all defined what I am because we can come up with lots of limitations that look like what's, but we don't know who. It's like, okay, so here I am, but who is this, right? Who is this? Right? You think you know yourself when you know what you are, but you never know who you are. The person merely appears to be, like the space within the pot appears to have the shape and volume and smell of the pot. See that you are not what you believe yourself to be. Fight with all the strength at your disposal against the idea that you are nameable and describable. Wow, we're just going for the top of the mountain here. You are not. Refuse to think of yourself in terms of this or that. There is no other way out of misery, which you have created for yourself through blind acceptance without investigation. Suffering is a call for inquiry. All pain needs investigation. Don't be too lazy to think. Okay. Wow. There is so much unpacking there. There is no such thing as a person. So you are not boundaried. You are not a particular, right? Let's just walk into our dream analogy. A very safe place to go. These things seem to show themselves pretty easily there. In that dream world that you're in with all of those people, say that we're dreaming right now and we look out here and we see all of these people. Well, even we don't even have to go that far, but we'll start there anyway. There are no people in a dream, right? There are no people there. There are no people in a movie, right? You're never seeing people when you watch a movie. And yet you'll see people. You'll define people. You'll see full-on personalities, right? Through projection, right? Through the errors of thinking about what you are, you then easily project that on inanimate things. And that kind of shows you how arbitrary it is, that you can use the same principles of what you've projected on yourself to say what you are. You do that same thing in a movie. You just project things on colors on the screen to say what they are. And then the movie develops and you carry on and you listen and are moved by the whole movie. But it's nonsensical, right? It's nonsensical. There never was a person there. There was nothing at all there. There was colors on a screen, and yet somehow you managed to eke out an entire story. Well, Sri Nisargadatta here is trying to say the same thing right now about your life. You have taken a series of sensations, a series of limitations given to you by your senses, and you've created an idea of yourself by talking about what you are, but never being able to answer who you are. And so you play along to simple attributes, not motivations. You're not in the world of meaning, which is who you are. You're in the world of limitations, of attributes, which only can tell you what you are, but are not telling you the truth because you are not a what. You're a who, right? You merely appear to be when you look at your boundaries. That's how you're defining yourself, is by your boundaries. And actually, all form is defined by its boundaries. Refuse to think of yourself in terms of this and that. I love this. This is emphatic. I mean, refuse, not slowly work out, in your practice, try to. He's not saying that. He's saying refuse. And because the sentences are quite adamant there, look at what he says before that. See that you are not what you believe yourself to be. So first of all, think about what you believe yourself to be, and then start poking at each one of those things. Have you always been that? Has that always been true about yourself? You know? And this is how you can sort of work these things out. You are not what you believe yourself to be. Fight with all the strength at your disposal against the idea that you are nameable and describable. Okay, I feel like I want to take everybody at the same time and grab your shoulders, grab your shirt into a bundle of my hands, and shake your head, shake you as hard as I can, and read this sentence to you. Fight with all your strength that you are at your disposal against the idea that you're nameable and describable. That's the intensity with which he's talking right there. He's not, sit and ruminate and think in your practice this morning that maybe you're not the set of limitations that you think that you are. No, he's standing on top of you right now taking your cheeks and pulling them and banging your head against the floor and saying, with all of your might, stand against this delusion, right? See that you are not what you believe yourself to be. Fight with all the strength at your disposal. Wow. Against the idea that you are nameable and describable. You are not. Refuse to think of yourself in terms of this or that. There is no other way out of misery. These are some intense, I mean, this is intense. He is really, really, really jumping on the point itself, and he's not going to take any slack. He doesn't want any explanations about why it's so difficult. He doesn't want any stories about, oh, well, this, that, oh, my habits, oh, I can't, I've tried, he doesn't want anything. He wants you to shut up and do it, right? He wants you to shut up and do it. He doesn't want anything, any of the mealy mouth stuff about why we're where we're at and why that's okay for the moment. He's saying you're in bondage, you're in misery. If you keep going the way you're going, it's going to go on for a very, very long time for you. Stop it. It's within your power to stop it.
It's all people do. The very opposite of what he's saying. Their whole lives are spent validating, revalidating. It's all people do.
Yes.
We
Yes.
do.
Yeah. What we do, that's exactly right. What we're doing. Even in our conversation about this, we're still standing in our protected space talking about it over there. We still don't know who we are.
We're
In
all phonies with persona and persisting at cultivating it and recultivating it our entire lives.
Yes, and changing it constantly, but believing that it's that it's solid, believing that it's dependable. Yes. Don't be too lazy to think. Don't just fall into slumber. Don't fall into the rhythm of habit, right? Keep yourself present. Keep yourself aware. Don't lose yourself in thought. The questioner throwing out another zinger. Activity is the essence of reality, right? This is that Buddhist idea, actually, that change is the only thing that's real. Activity is the essence of reality. There is no virtue in not working. Along with thinking, something must be done. Maharaj, to work in the world is hard. To refrain from all unnecessary work is even harder. Wow, okay, that's interesting. To work in the world is hard. To refrain from all unnecessary work is even harder. That's talking about focus. That's talking about distraction.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, it's hard to work in the world, right? Because to do it in a way that doesn't accumulate karma, to do it in a way that doesn't accumulate egoism, which is the same thing, but to do it in a way that's free is very difficult. But to not do that is going to be way more difficult. It's going to be a much harder life to live a life attached and driven. Questioner, well, for the person I am, all of this seems impossible. Maharaj, what do you know about yourself? You can only be what you are in reality. You can only appear what you are not. You have never moved away from perfection. There's a wonderful thing to say to remind yourself in the morning when you wake up. Sit on the edge of your bed, and before you dare to step into your body and start your day, repeat to yourself, I have never moved away from perfection. All ideas of self-improvement is conventional and verbal. As the sun knows no darkness, so does the self not know the non-self. Right? It is the mind which, by knowing the other, becomes the other. Yet the mind is nothing else but the self. It is the self that becomes the other, the not self, and yet remains the self. All else is an assumption. Just as a cloud obscures the sun without in any way affecting it, so does assumption obscure reality without destroying it. The very idea of destruction of reality is ridiculous. The destroyer is always more real than the destroyed. Reality is the ultimate destroyer. All separation, every kind of estrangement and alienation, is false. All is one. This is the ultimate solution of every conflict. Again, there's so much in here. Really, we've got all of Advaita in these 2 paragraphs. So his first question, what do you know about yourself? That's a good thing to sit and ponder sometime. Write a list. It would be an interesting list. What do I know about myself? And then go through each of those things on that list and say, and ask, just ponder it, just look at it. What is this based on? Is it changing or is it not changing? When did I learn this, or when did I take on this attribute or discover this attribute? Right? What do you know about yourself? You can only be what you are in reality, right? So what is, not what am I being? Who is expressing? What, I've got all these attributes, but what do they indicate about the expressor? Right? What do I know of that which is expressing? You can only appear what you are not. Yes, that's why to appear in this world, to manifest, we need a dusting of me and mine, a falseness, a false sense of separation. So Ramakrishna does that, takes on the ego of knowledge or the ego of a teacher or the ego of a devotee, right? He takes on some mask, some limitation, and identifies with it. And that's how he appears. So the only way that you can only appear what you are not. You can only manifest a delusion. What you are never appears. What you are is silence, a pregnant silence, a pregnancy of infinite potential. Everything that's stretched out in time, pulled back together to a singularity of a moment, never ending, never beginning. You have never moved away from perfection. So that unchanging you, which is observing the impure you and identifying with it, is itself untouched by your impurity. The dreamer is not affected by the dream. He may swim the ocean, but he will not wake up wet. He cannot be affected by the dream. So you, the dreamer, cannot be affected by this waking dream that we're in. You have never moved away from perfection. So identify with that part of you that has never moved away from perfection. Identify with that part of you that isn't manifesting. Instead of identifying with the manifested, because you know that to be unreal, because it requires imperfection to happen, you know it's not real. Instead of identifying with that, identify with the moment itself.
So Maharaj, how would you do that? It's like by just staying without thought in the present moment.
Yes, yes, it is that. It's standing in a state of, I don't know if I want to start with that sentence. Let's see. Yeah, well, first you have to know the things that you're identifying with. We identify with our thoughts. We think they're our thoughts, they're my thoughts. So your thought, the noise in your mind, is what you're identifying with normally. Whatever that noise says, you believe generally. So, in a concerted effort, remove your identity from your thoughts. Say, that's not me. The me is the silence behind those thoughts. So, notice the silence behind the thoughts and identify with that. Keep that as your definition of yourself. So, instead of being concerned about all the noise that you're hearing in your mind, be concerned with the silence that is allowing all of that noise to be apparent to you, because you are the silence that is containing all of the noise.
Is that the
You,
same thing as witnessing the thoughts?
yes, but it adds an element. It's adding the second element to it, not just witnessing the thoughts, but keeping your attention on the witnessing.
Okay. Awareness of the witnessing.
Yes, be that's your focus, being aware of the witness. You're watching your thoughts, but you're not focusing on the thoughts. You're just
Yeah.
watching them while you are trying to be aware of watching them. So you want to be aware of the watcher, not what it's watching. You want to not care about what it's watching. You want to care about the fact that there's a watcher.
Swami,
Right. Uh-huh.
I'm reminded of that quote that that is in the space between two thoughts, or
Yeah,
one thought and the next.
right. Exactly
Yeah,
that. Yes.
yeah.
I have a possible example of this is stand back from yourself, ride in the back of a pickup truck to where no one knows you, be dropped off to work on a melon farm. That'll put you in the right.
I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at how utterly lost I am by what you just said. Can you fill that out a little bit more? I'm in a melon truck. I'm with you. I'm being developed. I don't know where I'm being sent in a melon truck. But what do I do while I'm in the melon truck? I need you. You're muted.
Sorry, I just I used to do that. When I really wanted to get away from this game of validating and revalidating, I used to get in the back of a pickup truck and drive into I was driven into the countryside and where nobody knew me
Uh-huh.
and no one was interested in my pretensions and that I was dropped off someplace to do some work, just like a immigrant.
Uh-huh. So I mean, it's kind of a means of just kind of resetting your sense of self. Hmm. Yeah, that is interesting. I felt this, I was once quite a few years ago, I don't know, 10 years ago. I was invited to a party in Los Angeles for a group of people who had all been in a movie together. They had all made a movie some 20 years ago. And it was like the 20th anniversary of that movie or something. And so there was this big party. And one of the devotees invited me to come because he thought, well, even he was right, that I would be interested in kind of just being a fly on the wall at this event. And so I remember going to this party, and it was a little bit of a wrestle for me because I was like, dude, you're a monk. What's a monk got to do with an LA party? And I thought, I'm just curious. I'm doing this out of curiosity, really. So I went and I walked around that party, and I realized I realized I had no reason in all of creation to be there. I was so other as I walked around that party, and just I had nothing to connect with. I had nothing to say. It was so obvious. I think Mother really, for the last time, showed me there's nothing. There's nothing out there for you. There's nothing there for you. Stop looking. Stop trying to touch something that can't be touched. Stop looking for something out there, because all of that stuff is manifested. And to be manifested, it has to be unreal. Right? This is what we're reading. And so if it's unreal, what do you think it will give you? Stop it. Accept the fact you do not belong here. Accept the fact that you've never really been here. Accept the fact that all places are in you. Right? That all of this is projected by you. You already are all of it. That's how you're able to project it all. All ideas of self-improvement are conventional and verbal. As the sun knows not darkness, so does the self not know the non-self. Right? The self knows its existence. It does not know non-existence. It cannot even conceive of non-existence. Right? That's one of the things, that terrible failed attempt that I did trying to be like Ramana Maharshi when he laid on the floor and imagined dying and had his illumination. I sat there, I tried to do that one day because I was like, well, gosh, if he can do it, maybe I can do it. So I laid on my floor up in my room in the monastery, and I imagined things shutting down. I would feel my hands and then imagine not being able to feel my hands. And I went through my whole body like that. And I let the body become quiet. Like that's what death is. The noise of the body stops completely. So I sat there and tried to feel the noise of the body and to separate from it. And then I thought, well, the mind is also going to go silent. What's that going to be like to have the mind go silent? Right? And so I sat there and tried to let the mind go silent. And I couldn't get my realization. I couldn't break free. And so I went down for lunch with Swami Prabhupada, and I was kind of frustrated and told him, that I couldn't imagine my death, that I couldn't do it. I was sitting there trying and trying and trying to remove everything, and I simply couldn't cease to be. And he said something very beautiful. He said, well, what did you expect? How does that which has never died imagine dying? How can that which has never ceased to exist imagine non-existence? He said, of course you can't imagine being dead. Of course you can't imagine not existing. It is your very it is your very being. You cannot not exist. And so it's coming down to this knowledge, and living accordingly, letting that free you from your fears of not existing. Let that be your courage in not being particular, untethering your boat from the dock. Yet the mind is nothing else but the self. It is the self that becomes the other, the not self, and yet remains the self. All else is an assumption, right? And this is what we see in our dream, right? We see it is the self that becomes the other. As the dreamer, every character in that dream is other, and yet you become one of them, right? As the dreamer, you enter into your dream and you actually find an imagined being and you become it, and you enter into the dream as it, and you experience the dream, believing you to be in it and around with it. He says, but know that the mind is nothing but the self. The whole dream is nothing but you. It is the self that becomes the other. It's you, the dreamer. Hey, dreamer. Smack, smack, smack. Wake up. You're not in here. This imagined body isn't you. You're the dreamer. All of us, this whole party is happening inside of you, right? Know this. So yet the mind is nothing but all else is an assumption. Just as clouds obscure the sun without any way affecting it, so does assumption obscure reality without destroying it. See, this is one of the fundamental truths that I want to flip around and becomes a tool for us. You see how assumption, we assume that I'm the body. We assume that I'm the dream character. We assume that. There's no evidence that we are the dream character, right? There can't be any evidence because the fact of the matter is we're not the dream character. We're the dreamer. So even if there's imagined evidence that says, no, you're the dream character, it's not true. We have to look beyond that evidence because it's false evidence. It's information coming from the unreal. We know ourselves to be the dreamer, right? And so it's based on an assumption of us being that. And that's why I say when you begin your meditation, begin it with an assumption. And what is that assumption? That I'm realized. That I'm saying that my relationship with the divine is fully functional, fully established, right? Assumption and faith could be the same word, right? So you sit down and assume the presence of God. Mother is here. I'm not going to look for her. I'm not going to try and feel her. I'm not going to try and become aware of her. Mother is here. I accept that. And now I will let myself express accordingly. Mother is present. Mother is pure love. Everything is okay. So my meditation will be about sitting here in the presence that I know is true already of Mother, in a place where I'm already perfect with her. Already grace has removed anything that stands between me and her. I'm going to assume that's true. Just like I'm assuming that I'm this body, I'm going to assume that I'm free. Right? And so your meditation becomes about fulfilling that assumption of freedom. In the moment now. Forget tomorrow. That's a lie. There's nothing there. Tomorrow does not exist. It is conceptual. So there's nothing to be done because when you sit to meditate, you are just as much the non-doer as you are in everything else. Thakur says, how many times you are not the doer? So why in the world do you sit down to your meditation to do something? To attain something? There's nothing to do and there's nothing to attain. Faith is the root of it all. Faith is assumption. It's having the courage to assume your freedom and to live accordingly, to assume the presence and live accordingly, to assume your infinity and live accordingly, to assume your immortality and live accordingly. This is practice, not trying to attain some imagined state of bliss and perfection that waits in the future like some carrot on a stick for you. That's just another form of bondage. And by practicing it, you're practicing a delusion because you are assuming that you're not real yet. You're assuming that you are not that yet, as if you're going to become something. You see? Assume that you are. Assume all this stuff that the scriptures have told you is true. That's faith. Assume the presence of Mother or presence of Jesus or the presence of Rama or Buddha or Ramakrishna or as you like. Assume it and live accordingly. And bring the mind in alignment with that fact instead of the facts of mind, the facts of change. Right? So let's take this assumption instead of assuming wrong things. Let's assume right things. Let's assume things that the scriptures say are actually true.
Can I ask a question here?
Yes.
Thank you. Could you give examples of assuming living right or assuming your immortality? Because it can be like walking off the high scraper jumping, and doing this kind of thing. But I guess it's not what you mean by that.
Well, you could. I mean, certainly you could assume your immortality and go jump off of a skyscraper, and you're welcome to do that. And you'll find out the truth of it. But you'll find out that it's not the body that is immortal. It's not the dreamed self that's immortal, it's the dreamer. And you'll meet the dreamer.
Right, but what do you mean when you're saying live like by this assumption?
By this, what I mean is accept it as true and don't let the mind counter it. So when you sit in your practice, assume that you're unified with God. Don't try and be unified with God. Assume that you are. And in that assumption, open your mind to its implications. Give yourself permission to accept the bliss that's going to come from that assumption. Give yourself permission to accept the confidence that's going to come from that assumption. Give yourself permission to set down the things that that assumption is going to inspire. Lay them aside. Don't bring your baggage. Assume your courage. Don't be afraid as you watch yourself disappear, as you watch yourself lay down your favorite things and to accept your least favorite things, right? Sit in the assumption of the presence. It's all done. There's nothing more to accomplish. So if I'm in the presence of God, what am I going to do? Well, of course, you're going to enjoy the presence of God. What else would you do? What else is there to do? Enjoy that presence. Accept it deeply. Let it reveal itself to you. Don't think about it. Don't create the story. Unfold, right? Open up to it. Think the truth and then open to it. And allow the implications to express and to come alive. Feel your boundarylessness. Feel the unconditioned love that's forming, that's literally just bursting in the heart at these ideas. Feel the peace of knowing that you're utterly forgiven. There is no case against you to be made. Assume that. Assume that Mother has never even thought of your sin. It's never even occurred to her that you're less than perfect. And give yourself permission to see the same. Right? Let go of that part of you that isn't perfect. That's the unreal. So let go of it and be in the silent you. The silent you. The expresser of love. Right? So that's it. Yes.
At the start of the class today, the negation that he comes so emphatically, refuse
Yes.
to accept, that practice is easier because I'm talking to myself and saying, you're not that. And my thoughts are not facts. So I can believe that what I'm thinking is not a fact because it's not a fact.
Right.
But when you say the positive things, assume that I find it difficult to sort of wrap my head around.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's kind of the same practice as the neti neti. But it takes it's really going to be the same kind of practice. The assumption is just really what that is just framing your practice to get away from the idea that you're doing something to attain something in a future at a future point. Because it's like what Suzuki says, that we don't sit to realize God, we sit to know that we are already realized. You are already that. It's not that you're going to become that. It's not like thou wilt become that. It's thou art that, right? And so to allow yourself to assume this reality and then allow the implications of it, which would be the neti neti, right? The neti neti would be the implication of your realization. And so practice your neti neti with the assumption that there's nothing to be done, that you're not doing by saying neti neti. You're not attaining by doing neti neti. You've already got it. And you allow the assumption to make plain the neti neti. Well, if this is true, then that's not true. Well, if this is true, then that's not true. If I'm immortal, I'm not going to die. If I'm immortal, I'm not in time. If I'm immortal, I'm not a body, because no body is immortal. What is it in me that will live forever? What is it in me that is not body and not mind? Right? And so it's the assumption is kind of the case. It's the environment of your neti neti. right? It's the assumption of the truth that the neti is indicating or trying to back into. And so I say that more in the importance of reframing our meditations from a doership of attainment to a beingship of enjoying God, enjoying reality, right? Seeing the attachments that have ruined it, seeing the limitations and restrictions that limit it, that are causing our suffering. See all of that by assuming assuming the neti. I mean, assuming that what the neti indicates is real.
So that non-striving is very difficult.
Yes, it is, but it's very
Non-striving,
important.
but you're telling is non-striving.
Yes. No, and it is very important because striving is egoism. Striving is the mind working in the mind. We don't want to be the mind working in the mind. We are the witness being and letting everything else fall away. So letting things fall away is very different from pushing or throwing things away. You know, letting it drop off by assuming the truth. I don't need any of this. I don't need a thought to be happy. I don't need a reason because there is no cause and effect. I do not need anything. Nothing needs to be done in this moment. I am what I am always and always have always been. Right? So it's an assertion of the I am. At the same time, its expression is going to be a neti, but the assumption is I am. And it's just sitting in that and allowing yourself, giving yourself space to accept this beauty of your reality, giving yourself space to enjoy the world without being caught, without being attached, to see things in wonder, right? There's nothing more beautiful than the presence of God. There's just nothing more beautiful. The depth of that stillness, the depth of that peace, we will never know the fullness of it. You know, even in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, Brahmananda says we're just beginning, right? The peace of God is infinite. Assume that. Assume that you are in that peace because you are. And let that assumption manifest it. Let that assumption, let it present, right? As the company of your beloved divine. Accept it. And sit there with it. Don't say anything about it. Don't ask any questions about it. Don't poke at it. Let it appear. Let it express. Let your nature express itself, not your mind, not through thinking. Let your nature express just through being. Being is witnessing. No doing. No doing. It's an act of surrender. And so turning our practice into that, you know.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So what do you know about yourself? You can only be what you are in reality, right? And not only can you only be what you already are what you are, right? You can only appear what you are not, right? So the manifested is not what you are. You're that which is manifesting. The manifested will only be a small sliver of what you are. That's why it's constantly changing, because it needs to constantly change to express the infinite, right? And it is the infinite that's expressing. You are infinite. You have never moved away from perfection. All idea of self-improvement is conventional and verbal, right? Which means it's a story. That's a fancy way of saying it's a story. Conventional and verbal. So all ideas of self-improvement are conventional and verbal. They're just stories. They're not the reality. As the sun knows not darkness, so does the self know not the non-self. Right? So for the sun to not know darkness, it knows itself as the sun. Darkness can't exist in it. And so we know ourself as the Satchitananda. There is no depression in it. There is no sorrow. There is no suffering in it. There's light and love, service, empathy, caring, and all of it is spontaneous. It is the mind which by knowing the other becomes the other, right? It's the mind has become everything. Yet the mind is nothing else but the self, right? It is you that's being reflected in mind. It is the self that becomes the other, the not self, and yet remains itself, right? You're both the dreamer and the dreamed, but you are only aware of, you've placed your awareness in the dreamed and not in the dreamer. And so all we're trying to do is place our sense of self out of the dreamed and into the dreamer. Live the dream with the assumption that you're the dreamer and live accordingly. All else is an assumption. Just as a cloud obscures the sun without having any way of affecting it, so does assumption obscure reality without destroying it. The very idea of destruction of reality is ridiculous. The destroyer is always more real than the destroyed. Reality is the ultimate destroyer, right? It's the undoing of everything. All separation, right? Separation is what? Egoism. All separation, all egoism, every kind of estrangement and alienation is false, right? Because that's what particularization is. That's what having an attribute is. It's that which estranges you and alienates you from the reality of your being the whole, of you being the container of all things. All is one. This is the ultimate solution of every conflict. So the questioner says, well, how is that in spite of so much instruction and assistance, we make no progress? Right? Again, he's working on a line, right? And this is what I'm trying to counter with this idea of assumption. He sees himself on a line where he's working within causation, time, space, and causation to attain something. You cannot attain something you already are. So if you put it into that context, it's not going to happen, because that context is the only context within which ego can be employed. And that's what we're doing. We're setting ourselves up for more egoism if we keep ourselves on a line of doership. Come to the moment. There's no past in the moment. There's no future in the moment. There's no karma in the moment. There's no doing in the moment. There's being. Let go of all the things that can't fit in the moment, and you will see the truth. Okay? How is it that in spite of so much instruction and assistance, we make no progress? Well, we make no progress because we assume there's progress to be made. There's no progress to being. You are already. So Maharaj says, as long as we imagine ourselves to be separate personalities, see, that's the problem with this, with so much instruction, assistance, and not making progress. The problem is that you're starting with the wrong assumption. You're starting with the assumption, I'm not that, and I have to become that. That's the wrong assumption. That's why your practice is never going to be fruitful. Right? Because you're starting with the wrong assumption and have created an imagined goal, which is egoism. To have a goal is egoism, because the ego is what set the boundary that made you incomplete, that made you need to become whole. And so to act according to the sense of I'm not whole is to act in accordance with egoism, which is the veil, which is the very reason you cannot see the divine. Because all that you're seeing is divine. So assume that. Sit in that reality and let it unfold. Let it reveal itself as you sit there. As long as we imagine ourselves to be separate personalities, one quite apart from another, we cannot grasp reality, which is essentially impersonal, non-particular, right? First, we must know ourselves as witnesses only, right? So that's our first state. Establish yourself as the witness. Do not forget you are only watching. Do not forget. First, we must know ourselves as witnesses only, right? Which means we're not doers. We're not doers, we're witnesses. So our meditation is a witnessing of the truth. The truth we don't know, so we assume it. We've been told, I am that. I'm ever free. I'm ever pure. God and I are one. The love that binds me to the other is a love of unconditioned love. It has no requirement. I accept it, right? And in order to accept unconditioned love, you're going to have to develop an unconditioned humility. You're going to have to assume that you can do nothing in order to accept everything. As long as you believe you can do something, you're not going to be able to accept grace. Right? You have to come to the point of non-doership. I can't do anything. I'm the observer only. And you sit in the presence and you open. And you let that truth percolate to the top. First, we must know ourselves as witnesses only, dimensionless and timeless, centers of observation. Dimensionless, we're not in space. And timeless centers, we're not within cause and effect. We're not within time, we're eternal. And then realize that immense ocean of pure awareness, which is both mind and matter and beyond both. That true impersonal, right? Because you're not experiencing it from a point. This is the catcher. We're not observing it from a perspective at that point. This is beyond perspective. This is beyond having a me. Right? So the questioner
Maharaj, can I ask a question? So the
Yes.
second step is what he's saying is cannot be done by the mind, right?
Right. It cannot be done by the mind, which is why it's so important to be established as the observer of mind, because that awareness of not being mind is very important for letting go.
But even when one is the observer, I would say that it happens by itself. Is that the grace that happens by itself?
It's grace that's going to let it happen. And it's your faith and grace that's going to give you permission to accept it. Because I keep saying that, but it's because that's the truth of it. We're not realized because we have not accepted our realization. And we haven't accepted our realization because we have this egoistic idea that we don't deserve it, that we're unfocused, noisy, undeveloped beings, that something's wrong. And so we can't accept that we are enlightened. And so the ego then forms a story around how it can bring us to enlightenment. Oh, well, if we work really hard and if we do lots of meditation and if you just follow me, I'll get you there, right? But it's this abandonment. We have to understand it's a helplessness. In one sense, we have to accept our helplessness.
So it's more like surrender, Swamiji?
It's absolute surrender. That is the essence of it.
So
Absolute.
that's possible only with a pure mind. Somewhere down the line, there is purification of the mind, right? Or the personality or whatever it is.
The purification of mind means the removal of me and mine, which means you move yourself out of mind. So if you practice being witness, you're practicing that.
Okay.
You're pulling yourself out of mind, becoming comfortable and convinced that the mind is other, that it is not you. And through that, after you've done that, so see, he says here, first know yourself as witnesses. Establish yourself as the watcher of the mind. Don't ever let yourself forget that you are the watcher of the mind. Right? That's first. And then as you separate yourself from mind, as you get accustomed to that, then you're going to become aware. This is going to get tricky to try and describe this. When you separate from mind, there's a lot of stuff that becomes obvious to you that isn't a thought. It's a knowing. And this is where you know yourself, because the mind is over there and it's not the one talking to you and telling you everything at this moment. It's not the one that's solving your problem at this moment. You're in silence now, alone with yourself. The mind is over there and you're observing all of it, right? And in this place by yourself, the silence of being separate from mind, the peace of knowing that the thoughts don't no longer describe you nor tell you of problems that have anything to do with you. In this new environment where you sit, the more you sit there, just accepting the truth of it, the more becomes apparent to you. Not through thinking, but through awareness, through isness. And the you that you begin to know is not something that can be talked about. Because this is the part where he's talking about right here. Know that you're witnesses, and what's going to become apparent to you, that you're dimensionless, that you're a timeless center of observation, right? And once you become more identified with this infinity, which can't be identified with, so you're just sort of suspending your identity, then you realize that immense ocean of pure awareness, which is both mind and matter, and beyond both. Right, so this is your inner reality. This is what is in you right now, at this moment. This truth, as he's described it here, is in you, is you right now. And the you that isn't this, the one that you're identifying with, is the one that you let go of through your assumption, right? Through your assumption of the presence, through your assumption of awareness and your acceptance. It's your acceptance of grace that allows you to set down your karma, to shut up the mind when it accuses you, to make you insecure, to tell you that you're not worthy, or to tell you that your mind is noisy, or to tell you that you can't meditate, or to tell you that you're not, in the right state, or to tell you that you're impure, all that stuff, right? The mind starts spitting out your karma the moment you try and break free. It spits out all the reasons why you can't do that and how that's ridiculous. And you believe it. And that's the problem. Assume that it's not true. Assume that you are fully united with God. Assume that you are free. And through that assumption, experience what it means. All right. I think that's a good description of practice. Right. Okay.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Yes, it's 9:04, so let's stop there for today.